Hello, YouTube. Me tube. This tube. Wanted to do a recording to any future children that I have, that this whole channel is to be gone through. Oh yes. I was thinking about how humanity felt like all of my children. That I had a real sense that I was responsible for everybody. Of course, my limitations eventually got regained, and I realized I couldn't care for everybody, but on a highly spiritual level, I felt as if everybody was part of a big cosmic family, and that it was my role to do the best I could to help raise them. I don't particularly have that much that kind of feeling right now as I do having the knowledge of excuse my appearance. Having the knowledge of the universal mind, the collective unconscious, how it's reflexive and responsive to everything that I do, all the actions and choices that I make. And it's guiding. I was feeling like a puppet on a string, and I watched Radio Free Abemuth by Philip K. Dick, and it really struck me hard that there's this kind of subversion, this kind of following a higher power that could lead to subversion. And it was symbolized by the ram, and I had identified myself as a ram or a goat, a satyr, if you will, the natural man. But I've also been listening to the idea of the ego and being caught in a nut, that your head is a nut, and it's the job to crack the nut and go out into the world afresh, anew. And Coldplay really hit me hard lately in terms of the Catholic bells are ringing, that a sense of Godhead and Christianity really hit home, to awaken Christ consciousness. There seems as if there's a bit of meandering that is included in all of my thoughts that allow a bit of a knot to come together, a knot of contradiction or of paradox. Specifically, it was like the idea of libertarian idealisms kind of taking root as an old paradigm. I call it an old paradigm because the new paradigm is that everything is one, that all things are one. Even pain is considered a birthing process into a new type of spiritual tolerance and acceptance and growth and awareness. and that one shouldn't be afraid of pain. And as Matt Kahn says, I should link this video below because it was so impacting, that pain itself is something to not shy away from, to have an open door policy towards pain. When pain is ready to come, allow that pain in, because pain is transformation. I had a hard time trying to explain, even to myself, what the benefit was of going through tremendous physiological pain and tremendous emotional pain. But I guess to help crack my head open and get me into the universal mind, I had to bust my feet open. Kind of start with the other chakra. Start with the bottom chakra all the way down to the feet. I mean, most people think this chakra ends with your sacrum, but the whole of the man, the whole of the person, seems like the chakra can go beyond your head and below your feet. Anyway, my point about the meandering and paradoxes was something having to do with like fluoride in the water. Now, a libertarian like Alex Jones might say, this fluoride in the water is part of a world order cabal, because it's happening everywhere, and what it's doing is it's shutting down the pineal gland in the individual. And that this should be stopped, you know, and so there's a lot of words and conspiracy that seem to paint an aura of negativity about fluoride. Yet if you Google fluoride and you look at the Wikipedia of fluoride, you'll read that it's one of the major health benefits in the modern world. And so here's a bit of a contradiction. Or does it do both? Does it both help your feet, your teeth, and your bones, and calcify the pineal gland, keeping people dumbed down? Or is it one or the other? Is the fluoride bad in the body? Or is it inert? My highest spiritual being, the oneness with being, is a full acceptance of everything that is. Finding that even governments and law structure and words and paradoxes are all things that I need to just accept as being a part of everything, as being an integral part of consciousness, the spirit world, the spirit realm. By the spirit realm, I don't mean to disclude the physical body, but I sense everything as bits of energy and data, and I know the locale of what I'm able to control and what I'm not able to control. But if I took on a libertarian mindset, and I viewed that there was a cabal controlling the earth, other spirit minds, and that I'm not simply the center of the universe, if I believe in other minds, instead of like a grand matrix program that includes everybody and everything, set specifically around my own consciousness, which is very presumptive. presumptive. But as I'm trying to remain with critical thinking skills, it appears that that if I am to move contra against the government by looking at the government as a totalitarian kind of Nazi control machine that is in fact controlling us all with puppet strings and needs to be put in its place, then I fall into the role of an archangel, where I war, I create difference and I war. for an ideology, and an ideology that I can't necessarily trust. And if I see everything as one, that I'm just part of a collective, an intergalactic, if you will, what I imagine is something intergalactic, what I imagine is something that speaks to me directly, that is responsive to me, that everything is fine as it is, that there is no need for war. And the archangel, as opposed to being an archangel, becomes an ascended master. And so for whatever reason, I have this idea of wanting to be an ascended master while also wanting to be an angel. An angel with an anus, as Ernest Becker would say. I'm already quite aware that the world is filled with earth angels. I was watching this consciousness debate. They were talking about epiphenomenalism and dualism and materialism and panpsychism and what was the other one? Emergentism. And somebody brought up the idea that we couldn't, brought up Chomsky's idea that our brains are perhaps not capable of wrapping itself around the concept of consciousness any more so than mathematics is able to wrap itself around the phenomena of gravity. We have indicators, we have things that we can look at in science, like gravity has physics and mathematics supporting it. Consciousness has biological study, neuropsychology, or neuroanatomy, or kind of a dualist argument, a correlation without causation, and causation, arguments about consciousness. But ultimately, when they brought up panpsychism, I thought of Matt, Thou Art That, Pressing Whitehead's panpsychism, and how ultimately when I felt bonded with the universe, panpsychism seemed to be the most true, that everything is conscious, that consciousness pervades absolutely everything, that everything is alive. But then I thought, I have trouble with the idea of imagining the phrase, everything is real, including nothingness, including negative space. It's all real. And then kind of trying to parse off what imagination is to me as a responsive, mentally guiding potentiality, such as things that I witness on TV but I don't necessarily relate to. Even though I spend a great deal of time attempting, not even necessarily attempting, but just relating to data. People's drawdown from absurdity does not allow schizoid concepts to balloon open. To say that everything is real is to imagine that imagination itself has some reflective power actually in the universe. Whatever is imagined, whatever is created, isn't just there in its own right. It's reflective of something that actually is the case. Whether in this universe or another, this galaxy or another, this dimension or another. Kind of the Zoroastrian, if it happens once, it'll happen again. If it happens once, it's happening somewhere. So this allowance of everything is real as a concept, as an utterance, takes on a dogmatism in my mind. So I try to parse off what is real and what's imaginary, what's influential, what's archetypical, what's metaphysical, to feed me. So I kind of get a sense of regrounding, but it doesn't separate my relationship with the universal mind. It just doesn't allow an entanglement to occur, but absurdities have to be, at least in my mind, they have to be allowed to gel and populate, and to be over-exaggerated and overextended. So when I think of panpsychism and thinking of everything as conscious, I think, to what extent is this just imagining everything as being conscious? Just because I know that I'm connected to other beings, and I imagine a connection with vegetables. I have it with animals, but I imagine it with vegetables. But as far as objects are concerned, like, I grant a spiritual structure to that object, to this object, to this computer, to you. I indulge in the panpsychism, but then I back away from it a little bit and think, well, objects are inert. Even though this table is made out of wood, which was alive, is it alive? How much is it alive? But then when I think, do I believe, do I see what it is I see, or do I see what it is I believe? Anyway, not only did I jump off of a roof and saw stars and saw orb, but I sped like Batman late at night through traffic. Traffic just opened up to me. Like cardboard cutouts that just fall over. Traffic would move out of the way. And I was thinking about my art forms. There's some people that when they're tuned in to the universal mind, they know the kindness that people need to share amongst one another, and they wouldn't want it any other way. So I thought, so I think. And then this makes me guilty for painting within the Dharma, within my Dharmic system, the rules of society, if you will. Something that is a bit negative, that is a bit subversive. Kind of the idea between the saint and the sinner. My artwork is spotty throughout it, but I pollute the positives with a bunch of negatives. And if the negatives are like negative space and the positives are like white space, then it's outlined with a big yin-yang, a nice circle around it. And that dualism caught within a monism that I get to witness myself interact and perform makes me, in a way, feel as if I'm watching Star Wars happen inside of me. And the perpetuation of the negative makes me feel like a Sith master, like a Sith Jedi. And yet, my day-to-day life, I'm a complete pacifist. So, I wonder why I paint violent artwork, disharmonious artwork, lest it be an echo of my former ego. Right now I'm painting a zombie clown in a winter scene with a bullet hole in its head. And it's not quite done. But to me, a bullet hole in the head, it's a commission piece. But out of the blue, this commission comes to me when I'm telling myself to clean up my artistic act. And here it comes with the flavor of being paid. And I somehow was able and am able to exact this painting, which then makes me feel as if I'm looking at art as part of my mirror of consciousness, and that what I'm painting is a reflection of myself. But I always said, no, I'm painting non-representational things. I'm not painting a mirror of myself. God forbid I do landscapes anymore because they're so mundane. But I do like the painting process. The sun, the wheel keeps on turning, the sun keeps going around. We didn't start the fire. It's always been going. I'm just awoken to myself in this universe. And it feels as if it's you know, the 3D reality is the dimensionality that we move through with physics. And then time, the fourth dimension, the fact that we're changing these things, But the fifth dimension is a spiritual shift. It's a shift away from the physicality into spirit. It's a bonding with oneness. It's a seeing a oneness instead of that which is separate off. So the ego is dead. And I was calling this the death of ego. The death of ego the clown, a footnote. And it's not done yet, but that's what I'm working on. Anyway. I used to be a solid monastic, meaning mono, meaning singular, momentous individual in my early 20s. But I've always been a bit of a mimic. I've always mimicked things. And with art forms, I've always swiped. I shouldn't say I've always swiped, but for non-representational art, there's always been styles that have heavily influenced me in my behavior, so I've always swiped. And somebody left a great comment when I was concerned about this, like all good artists steal. But it's just weird to come to a coalition of a sense of self that also includes all the people that I've ever stolen from, that I've mimicked from. But how could I avoid influence? I mean, I've been at a plank's length to every idea that's passed through my mind. And now I feel somehow like I'm like I have free will again. Like, you know, it's ironic because it's everything is determined. It feels like there's puppet masters pulling the strings, and then I run roughshod against the grain of that, kind of free myself up as an individual again, as an ego again, and there's a certain sense of freedom that's in there before I rebond with everything. And even if I think I'm moving against the divine logos, I'm moving with the divine logos, so it would seem. I don't know how much of that is imagination. Anyway, I don't want to make this video too long. This is just kind of a side note that the water's dropped out of the bottom of the pail, the nut's cracked, the ego's been blown open. I'm a part of all of you. There is a point where it is as if my mind is read by everybody. But then in pragmatics and practicality, I notice that it's not. But it sure feels as if some people, if not the majority of people, can read my mind, know my destiny. It was a very interesting mental birth to bond with the universal mind, to bond with oneness. Like a fish floating in the sky, but somehow I'm hanging my dorsal fin down into the water, treading through old egonic states. I always had the language of no ego, but I never had no ego. I've never been headless before like I am now, with a knowledge of being headless. Even this computer appears fake. But it's a tool. It's my recording device, so I get to look back upon this. And I wanted to do that. The divine logos, God, powers that be, whether or not it's plural or singular, if it's an empire, a galactic empire, whether or not multiple galaxies, all gravity is pulling on me at once. The all-seeing internal eye. The trouble, the problem with other minds is kind of like the problem with free will. There's a sense of free will. There's a sense of other minds, but there's also a sense that everybody is just an alternate aspect of me looking back at me. And I'm looking at them. And all I'm doing is interacting with myself. And that's how I feel, as if everybody is a child. And that I'm the responsible party to figure that out. But really, to be responsible is to be responsible for myself. Through this flood of pain and agony and rehabilitation and healing, I kind of dumped away responsibility from myself so I could forge something through the pain, a new rebirth. And then the question comes down to love and my nature. Is my nature something so dharmically negative that only few people want to identify with it as a reflection of self? Am I accepted if I am a Sith Jedi, if I am part of the dark nature? I'm not totally enlightened because I've pissed on love before. When I got seduced into love, I rejected it because I couldn't stand who it was I was in love with. So I just swapped the poop deck with her and got her out of here. Put her in my past. The longer she stays in my past, eventually she'll only ever be just in my past. And I think that's where I want her. But the point is that I did that with love. As short-lived as it was. And I'm finding more love in greater understanding in historic individuals. I'm revisiting who I think understands me well and matches me. I'm trying to allow my heart to settle there. My heart needs to find a home, and I sense that it's found it. I don't want to disrupt it, but I can't tell what tomorrow is going to bring. I don't ultimately know the seat of my soul. I just know that love is a rite of passage. Like prom, marriage is a rite of passage. Children is a rite of passage. Not everything has to happen to every individual, and it won't. And even paradise comes to an end. has the sunset on it. But it doesn't mean I shouldn't attempt to be in paradise the best I can find it. To be honest, it's been a long time since I've sensed that I was in paradise. I mean, where I could really sink my teeth into paradise, hold on to it, never let it go. That sensation of never letting it go. I'm trying to accept myself and accept my presence and accept what is, and yet being quick on my feet and having God's speed, moving in progressive ways. Don't look at the negative, and turn your back on that which is mediocre and only go for the best. Should be the best. The best for the individual, the best for the self. When my sense of ego and self can value penetrate, have its echo in the universal mind, also as a oneness with somebody else, I won't be so quick to end engagements. I don't believe. Anyway, boy, hopefully I make a music video one of these days. That's kind of what I want to do. I think the Das Pook channel is hopefully coming to an end. It's supposed to be sprouted from a destroyer perspective. I just don't think I've got destroyer in me anymore. Lots of movements, lots of psychological, spiritual, empathetic, very dynamic, seemingly supernatural happenings, events, and maneuvers on my part. I can't lose sight of everything that I've experienced because I know what I've experienced is real. And since I've experienced some extraordinary things, I know that that which is pedantically considered impossible is possible in at least the manners that I've experienced them. Maybe I should dress up and shave down before my next video. I'll leave everything with that. Thanks for watching. Yo.